Let's resume with the week 3 lab assignment, picking up at step number 9. Here we're getting ready to begin the functions to enter in to our assignment worksheet. Now these functions are really sort of like a simple word scenario puzzle to complete. In 9A, we're looking at year 1 sales. Look at your spreadsheet. Where is year 1 sales? We know year 1 is here in column B, and we find sales. So year 1 sales is B4. And the function that's to be entered into that cell is outlined here. So here's the function that we are to enter. When we see these two closed parentheses, each time we have an instance of an open parenthesis, we then need to have a closed parenthesis for each one. So I have open parenthesis 1, open parenthesis 2. That's why I have 2 closed parentheses at the end. So let's look at this function. We know every function begins with the equal sign. So we'll begin with that. Units sold in prior year. If you look at the assumptions table, in B23 we have units sold in prior year. Now looking back at 9A in our book, we see that we are multiplying, which is the asterisk symbol, so we'll type in the asterisk. In parentheses, we are looking for the unit cost. And the unit cost we see in our assumptions table in B24. I need to divide, and that is the / key. Again, I have an open parentheses, and I'm looking to subtract the margin. And where do I find the margin? In the assumptions table, in B27. Remember, I have 2 closed parentheses to close out both open parentheses. I can now enter that formula, and I have my data there. Let's look at 9B. 9B, I'm looking at year 2 sales. So we know we're in year 2 and we're in the sales row. So we're in cell C4. Our function is going to begin with an equal sign. And we're looking to begin with year 1 sales. Well, year 1 sales we know is right here. And that would be B4. I'm looking to multiply, and then I need an open parenthesis. I'm looking to take 1 plus the annual sales growth. I can find the annual sales growth in my assumptions chart, which is in B25. I'll close parentheses and I'm multiplying some more. Here I'm looking to take 1 plus, and I'm looking at the annual price increase. The annual price increase, again, is in the assumption chart in B26. I'll close that parenthesis, and in this instance, I only need 1 because my first open parenthesis is closed. My second open parenthesis is closed. I'll enter and accept that formula, and that is now populated in my year 2 sales data. When I look at step 9C, it's asking us to copy this data that's in C4 and to put it and apply it in D4 all the way to DI. So I want to apply this function from D4 all the way over to DI. Well, when you read your course textbook for chapter 3, you learned about something called absolute reference. Let me show you that quickly. I'm going to select C4, and I want to use the $sign as absolute reference so that when I copy this function, the absolute reference to these numbers stay in place. If I did not use the $sign, just like when we added year 1 and dragged it across and Excel went ahead and updated the math, Excel would update everything. But I want where I have B25 and B26 to be the absolute value. I don't want that to change. It should be B25 and B26 for all of them. Once I select and enter that, remember the fill handle, which is the square in the lower right-hand corner of the cell. Make sure your cursor turns to a solid plus sign, and you can now do a left click and drag all the way over to column I4. Now each one of these cells, we stay true to B25 and B26, but we have the actual cell previous year value looking at these years. So when I'm looking at year 4, I'm really looking over at, I'm starting with the value of year 3, and then I'm looking at taking the same data that we used from B25, which is the annual sales growth, and B26, which is the annual price increase. So that's an easy way to copy those numbers and have it be the same. Otherwise, you would manually enter it. We'll get to that in just a moment. Now looking at the next step, which will be in step 9D. I'm looking at year 1 cost of goods. So here I see cost of goods is row 5, and of course year 1, I'm looking at B5. My function starts with an equal sign, and I'm looking to start with year 1 sales. Well, that's the row right above it, year 1 and its sales. So that's B4. That's year 1 sales. I'm looking to multiply that, and I'm looking to put in 1 minus the margin. 1 minus, and remember the margin is in our assumptions table. I can enter in that data. My number will automatically populate for me. All I'm doing is just connecting the dots here from the steps in the book. In 9E, I am copying the cell just like we did before. I'm looking to copy B5, this data, and I want to copy it through all of these. So remember we talked about using the absolute value. And in order to do that, I could again put in the $sign. Otherwise, I would need to enter in each individual number. So just as I did here, I want to keep B27 because that's the margin. So I would have to put in equals, oops, didn't mean to do that. Here I would put in drag this across. Here I have in my C4, but my problem is I'm not looking at C27 because there is no data in C27. It's really supposed to be B27. And that's why using the absolute value would allow me to use the fill handle to drag across. Otherwise, I can manually put it all in and manually enter in each one of these formulas. But I need to have the correct data. Oops. I need to have the correct data of B27, which is my margin. So I'll go ahead and enter that. And again, you can go in and manually adjust each one, or you can use the absolute value, which is by putting in the $symbol. Now you'll notice that on each one of these, I have a green check mark in the upper left-hand corner of my cells, and that's because I'm finding that there's a formula problem. And in this particular case, the formula refers to an empty cell. That's because F24 that we outline here, there is no F24 in this spreadsheet. And that's why we use the $symbol for absolute value transference. I'm just doing this manually just to show you another quick option for that. This is not your best option because you may miss a cell or make errors. It's more prone to errors, such as that one. Okay, so once you have them all in, you have your functions in each one of your cost of goods sales. And we can now go back to the next step, which we are looking at step F. So now we're looking at gross margin. And here I want to find gross margin, which is here in row 6, and I'm looking at column B. So I want to start my function with an equal sign, and I'm looking at year 1 sales. Where's sales? Sales is row 4. Where's year 1? Right here, B4. The next thing I'm looking at is subtracting year 1 cost of goods. So I'm looking to subtract. And where is the year 1 cost of goods? Cost of goods is here in row 5, year 1. That's simple. And now I can enter in that function. Now we're back to step G, so 9G. We're looking to copy cell B6 to the range of C6. So we're doing the same thing. We're just copying this right across. So again, it's the same concept of what we outlined before, and I can go ahead and copy that across. Moving along here I am on 9H, year 1 advertising. Where is advertising? That's row 8, year 1, column B. And now I'm looking at starting my function with an equal sign and starting with 1500. So I'll start my function with an equal sign, 1500. And 1500, I'm looking to add to that 7.5%, because that's exactly what step 9H says, 2 times, which is an asterisk, and year 1 sales. And year 1 sales, we know, is year 1 is column B and sales is row 4, B4. And then I can go ahead and enter that in. So you can see how going through these functions is not that complex here. So we're looking at, that's H, right? So for C8 would essentially be the same thing, only I'm not looking at B4, I'd be looking at C4. So if I use my fill here, I'm looking at C4. So I'm good to go with that. And I did not finish these. So each one is now the updated function, which is exactly what we typed here in B8. But now we're looking at year 2 sales. And now we're looking at year 3. So hence, that's why we end it with D4. It's the same exact function that we started with here in advertising for year 1, only now we're looking at the year 3 data. So that's why the D3 is on the end there, and that's why the E4 is on the end here, and that's why the F4 is on the end here, etc., etc. So that is 9H, and I'm sorry, that's 9H and I, and now we can look at maintenance. So on your spreadsheet, find the maintenance row, which is row 9. We're going to start with year 1. And our function here for maintenance, actually there's no function, we're just entering in data. So for year 1, I need to type in 500,000. In year 2, I need to type in 625,000, etc. Really, the textbook is just telling me exactly what I need to put in for each one of the datas here. So for maintenance here, I'm going to enter in the 500,000. And then the next one is 625. And you'll see I'm just continuing because all I'm doing is following exactly what the book has me say. So I'm on year 4 right now. Year 4, I'm entering in 525. So year 4, I'm entering in 525,000, that is. And so now I'm looking at year 5. Year 5 is 550, etc. I think you get the idea here. And from 550 we go 450. And then we have 400 and 400. And now all my maintenance costs are entered. Often you might have a client and they're going to give you their existing expenses or their receipts where you'll add them up and put in that total amount of data in some of your cells. So that's why sometimes it's not always a function that's used. Now we look at year one rent. Again, find the rent category, which is row 10. I'm looking at year one, so I'm looking in B10. And here, all I'm looking to do is enter in the actual value here of my rent value. No function needed because this is just a rent number. And you always want to verify your numbers against the data even after you enter it, so you're ensured that you don't reverse any numbers or make any errors. Now, year two rent, I'm looking at now adding a function for that. So I'm still in rent, which is row 10, column C for year two. And now I just need to start my function with an equal sign, and I'm looking at what was year one rent. Oh, that was here in B10. And now I'm going to do some addition. I'm looking at 6%. I need to multiply that, and I need to use an asterisk, and I'm looking to multiply that by year one. So the rent will go up by 6%. So now I have that calculation. I can enter that in, and my rent is in. So for year two, it's the same rent that we have here in year one, but we've added 6% for inflation, the cost of living. And now you'll see step 9M is asking you to copy this cell all the way over from D9 and all the way here over into I9. So when we copy in our rent, we can do the same thing as we've done before previously of using our fill handle, but we'll need to either use the absolute value or we can make modifications. Let me just do the fill handle over 1. So here we're looking at year 3, and so I am looking at what the rent was here in year 2, and it's going to increase by 6%. So here my function is correct. Let's go ahead and use the fill handle to drag all the way across. Each year I'm looking at what the previous year's rent was and adding 6% to it. Here I'm looking at the previous year of here, year 4 is E10, and I'm adding 6% to it, etc. So each one of these functions is completed and correct. We now need to complete the functions for the remaining parts of our spreadsheet. We're really getting most of our data just from from the assumptions chart and some existing information that we've already started to build and enter. See what you can do on the remaining part of these functions, picking up in your lab, in your textbook with step 9, and you're looking to resume at the very next step. I think that's step N. So I look forward to seeing some solid week 3 lab assignments with all of your functions that are entered in. We're not done yet. I just got everything started for you.